Hello and welcome to the Federal. Today we have with us TM Krishna, a voice which has rendered some beautiful Carnatic music and a voice which has become a voice of protest and dissent. Hello Mr. Krishna.
Hello.
Music in recent times has, not in recent times also, music has a very close connection with the environment, social movement, political upheavals across the world. And in recent times we have seen songs like Dekhenge, which
it was incredible.
The current generation.
And there's a Kannada version now of it too.
The millennials have never heard about it. It's not that popular even among my generation.
Yeah.
So, what is your take on this? How is music so connected with social movements?
I think we have to, if you look at, there are two parts. One is that if you look at art and protest, in general in society, whether it's the African American story or whether it's the Dalit story or whether it's the story of women, it's usually the marginalized sections of society who have always raised their voice, first of all. Okay? Because they had to be heard. If you had to be heard, you had to raise your voice, you had no choice. And they are the ones who have used art and music in the most beautiful manner. So the credit for being creative artistically in the political voice goes to the marginalized. Okay? And I think coming from that you have had even genres evolving. That's what's most fascinating. The hip hop movement, jazz are all some way come out from the marginalized, giving themselves aesthetic and political voice. So gospel music is another classic. It's entrenched in religion, but it's also it's almost like the bhakti movement in some way, right? It's like a demand of saying, I own God. Who the hell are you to tell me? God is mine. That's how different is it from the bhakti movement here when Tukaram said this or when Andal said this. I'll embrace him and give him a kiss. He's my lover. So you see all this coming generally from communities and individuals who belong to parts of societies that need to raise your voice. They're the most creative parts of society. So I think it is wonderful that we are seeing the middle class young boys and girls today also participating in that creative process. The left movement have also used it. We can't forget that the left to a large extent has used music, but they use it directly like tools, you know what I mean? Like directly like songs for certain causes, certain movements, messaging, etc. Tamil Nadu has another unique culture. The whole idea of Tamil cinema is born only because of politics. It's a fascinating thing. The whole notion of Tamil cinema is political. If there was no Dravidian movement, you won't have an idea of Tamil cinema identity. So I think Tamil Nadu is also very unique in that sense. Politics has influenced cinema, whether it's Bengal or whether it's Maharashtra, yes, but nothing like this, where in Tamil Nadu the entire modern notion of cinema making, acting, storytelling came because of a socio-political movement. So there is interconnectivity is always there. I think it's also a question of how you use it. We use it overtly, very literally, whether it is going to be subversive, whether it's going to be something that tells you a side story. So there's so many possibilities, which is why I think fundamentally we all know that, I say this 100 times, I'll say it again, the only reason we will change is because we feel, not because we understand. And I think that's why art is so important, because it makes you feel.
Today you have written a letter, open letter, with former Justice Chalameshwar and Adur, telling that there is a serious threat, former CEC, telling that there is a serious threat and it's time for us to look at what the Constitution is at the 70th anniversary. What are the threats you think the Constitution is facing at this point of time?
I think it's the entire spirit of the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution is an incredible piece of work. It's not perfect, but it's done by human beings. If it's perfect, there's utopia is a fraud, right? We all know that. Similarly, if it was perfect, there's a problem. It's always going to be work in progress. It's always going to be something that we need to relook at. But the essence of it, the heart of it, the spirit of it is absolutely astounding. Every idea of ethical living, of being part of not just the human species, but being part of an idea of the world, an ecosystem with so many different beings, is encapsulated in the idea of the Constitution. And I think I look at the Constitution as a cultural document. I mean, we talk about so many things of the idea of India. I think that the Constitution gives us that idea. It also sieves all the ugliness out. It tells us there is so much ugliness in us. You know, we have to make sure we don't retain that ugliness. So it is a document of reality and a document of hope. We are now faced at a threat of saying that that document itself doesn't represent us. We're being told that. We're being told that the document is not India. And a very important wedge is being placed. The wedge is being placed between the idea of a democratic independent India and a civilizational India. This is done purposely by the RSS, BJP and their cahoots. It's done purposely. They want to say that the old ancient religious Hindu India is a far more superior idea, a far more evolved notion than the idea of the modern democratic liberal India. And this is a fraud wedge. It doesn't exist. The Constitution has taken into account in its spirit every possibility of the past. But what the Constitution has done, and which they do not like, is also question the past. And its questioning has come in the way it has embedded certain value systems in its being. And the moment you accept that value system, you have to question that past. None of these people want that past question. They want a casteist, upper caste India. They want a patriarchal India. They want an India that rejects every other religion. They want an India that says that if you are Muslim but in India you have to accept originally you are Hindu. Now every one of this is challenged by the Constitution, and therefore they are placing this wedge in between, saying we are much greater before, and therefore everything that's happened from 1947 is somehow not India. It's been forced upon you. We have to fight this tooth and nail. We have to fight this tooth and nail, because our Constitution is about humanity. It's about trying to be, very simply put, a good person. I mean, very simply put, that's the most difficult thing to be. And we have a framework for it. I mean, it's astounding. I mean, I get goosebumps now I'm talking to you. I'm getting goosebumps talking to you. I mean, just think of it, such a beautiful idea. And if that's under challenge and being threatened, how can you keep quiet? So we are pushed to a position, and I would say pushed, where we have to reclaim things. We have to reclaim days, we have to reclaim words, we have to reclaim people. If we don't know tomorrow what we will be told. And in this modern new world where messaging happens like that, we have to be always on the watch. And I think the letter that we co-signed today is an appeal to all of us, saying January is an important month. Netaji is important to this country. Ambedkar is so important for this country, and Gandhi is. And the three of them didn't necessarily agree with each other. But isn't that the beauty? We need to reclaim that inner spirit, and it's directly under threat. Let's not lie at least about it.
The thing is that the Constitution itself provides for so many ways for itself to be amended. Earlier under the Congress in the 50s, and now we are seeing the NDA ruling now. They are doing things, amending Constitution under what rules it's been written about. You know, they are not doing anything out of the book. So in case like this, where brute majorities are there ruling the country, amending a constitution is not a big deal anymore. So do you see that as a bigger threat?
Well, I think Ambedkar said something to that effect, if I'm paraphrasing, I could be wrong, that the constitution is just a piece of paper. It depends on the people who are in government, who are governing, something to that effect. I think that's probably says it all. You can have 100 things written in a piece of paper. You can have 15 checks and balances. There's always going to be a way by which you can circumvent it, by which you can use brute force. Therefore, I think let's go back and think why is this happening. I think there is a problem in all of us as citizens. I think that's something also we have to reflect upon. I don't think we really understand rights. I don't think in this country we understand what rights are. I mean, I'm just going to compare it to the States. Every child knows their rights. They are taught in school. We seem to be a society of favors, We are used to favors being done by somebody. So it's a feudal mindset. So in a psyche which is feudal, in a cultural habituation where we have done nothing and we are all at fault for it, which is why I said it's a cultural document. We have not recognized it that change has to be only cultural. Have we sung about the Constitution ever as a schoolboy? No. Have we talk, I keep saying, we talk about secularism. Honestly, who understands that word? It's an abstract idea. If you say secularism, what does anybody understand by it? So, why didn't we sing songs when we were in school? Why didn't we pray? Why didn't we put a condition that every school must have a prayer that celebrates every religion? We want to be putting the national anthem in a cinema theatre. That seems our priority. So my point is, we as a society are entirely undemocratic. So you have a social setup that is so undemocratic, that is so feudal. How can you expect notions of democracy to actually pervade the governance model? The smarter you are, the cleverer you are, more brute majority you have, you're going to just oppress more. This is a wake-up call for us, that being a citizen is not about going and voting. Being a citizen is understanding your rights. To be able to go and stand and protest is not permission seeking, is not disruptive to the traffic of the day. It is the right of the citizen to ask a question. In Tamil days, they have this word, "Onakku in the bumble," right? That's how we work. So we need a cultural transformation. So it's going to take a decade, 2 decades. But again, unless we take this juncture to think way ahead, it's a cycle. We're going to fall back into this trap, irrespective of who's in power. I mean, which government is in power doesn't matter, right? So we have to think of changing the way we view our own identities, our collectives in society, of making rights a cultural being, making notions of equality something that is cultural. We have to change the whole education system.
Yeah, coming to the topic of intolerance, there was a author whose book was pulled out of the Chennai book fair.
I read about it, yes.
Yeah. And do you think there's a level of intolerance is rising in a state like Tamil Nadu too? And a book which has been pulled out of the display, there's no ban on the book. If there's a ban, it's okay for a book to be pulled out.
I think that's the whole thing, no? The facade of democracy allows you to do all these things, still claim democracy. People many times ask, you are speaking so much, where are you saying that you are being stopped? Isn't this democracy? You don't understand that in a democratic setup, fear or the implanting of fear is the most dangerous tool, and that's what's being used here. So I think this whole idea of banning books or removing books, not willing to listen to the words of a writer, are all just symptoms of definitely a authoritarian and more authoritarian state. But Tamil Nadu is not new. It's not new to Tamil Nadu. I mean, Jayalalitha was in power. We saw. Most of us wouldn't talk. It's the truth, right? We wouldn't talk because we were scared. Let's be very, very clear and honest. At least today, after
that was my next question.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth, because it was terrorizing. You were scared when Kovan, the singer, nobody cared about Kovan when he was attacked for making the Ghana song. So the fact is that we are an intolerant society, and the intolerance is without doubt increasing, and it's increasing in a very more dangerous way. I'll tell you why. One is a chief minister or a certain party, and that party functioning module attacking somebody or an individual or a book. Now it's become a freelance operation. Anybody, anywhere can beat up anybody without asking anybody. So what they have done systematically is they have spread this kind of fear and this kind of anger and hate all over, that they can never be held responsible for it. Anybody can go and beat up anybody. I mean, when after so many Dalits were beaten up because they were carrying beef, what organization did they belong to? They'll just say those some fringe elements. That's a favorite word now, right? A fringe element. But you create so many fringes, which is what is happening now. So you have so many people across just willing to go and say, I hate you, I will hate you. And they don't need to have any affiliation. Now this is when it becomes even more dangerous, when everybody can do it out of free will and nobody can be held responsible for it. The level of fear that puts in the mind of citizens is massive. And again I stress, especially among those who don't have a camera sitting in front and you're not interviewing.
What are you? Are you a patriot, or a nationalist, or a urban Naxal?
So till about recently, I didn't like. I mean, in terms of philosophically.
And the new term called urban Nazi. Also.
Yeah, urban Nazi, urban Naxal, pseudo secular. I've lost track now. So till recently, I never liked the words. I mean, I problematized the word nationalist and patriot because I felt that they need to be looked at very carefully. But I've changed my position. I want to reclaim the words now. I want to say I am a nationalist. I want to say I'm a patriot. And I feel it's important that we don't run away from those words. We can intellectually argue about them, but that's for another day and another time. I've changed my position. I'm going to say proclaim I'm a nationalist, I'm a patriot. Because otherwise the idea of being a patriot is itself being completely twisted and manipulated. A patriot is now becoming a person who hates people. A patriot is becoming a person who says, you can't come into my country. A patriot is a person who says that I will ask you for your grandfather's or great-great-grandfather's ID card to prove you're Indian. A patriot is somebody who just beats and sings the national anthem in the cinema theatre. A patriot is somebody who hates anybody asking questions. Now, if that's what they're going to make patriots to be, no, I'm going to stand up and say, no, I'm not that. I'm not any of that, but I am a patriot. I am a nationalist.
We hope that too, Mr. Krishna. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Lovely
a lot.
talking to you. Such a pleasure. Thanks a ton.